Yesterday, the National Youth Development Agency was formed through the mutually beneficial marriage of the Umzabumvu Youth Fund and the Youth Commission. Do you think this was a smart move? And what do you believe the National Youth Development Agency will do differently?
Well, the Umzabumvu Youth Fund and the National Youth Commission both failed in their mandate. Ultimately, they couldn't deliver, they couldn't improve the circumstances of the young people in this country. And the people that were employed by that organisation have since been assured that they will be retaining their positions within the new National Youth Development Agency. So we're very sceptical as to how people that have previously failed are suddenly going to make a success of this organisation. Added to that, the National Youth Development Agency also has a R1 billion budget, and to date there's no clear mandate as to what exactly they're going to be doing with this budget. So although we are very grateful that the government is now prioritising youth issues, we're very sceptical as to whether this new agency is actually going to be able to deliver to the people of this country.
It sounds potentially problematic. I also hear that the Umzabumvu Youth Fund and the Youth Commission were ineffective in accessing the rural youth. Do you think that the National Youth Development Agency will be more accessible to all South African youth?
That certainly is the idea and the stated aim of the organisation. Unfortunately, although it's supposed to be a non-partisan government agency, the vice chair of, or the vice president of the ANC Youth League has now been appointed the chair of the National Youth Development Agency, which clearly is a gross conflict of interest. And I really don't see how this organisation can serve all South Africans when clearly it's going to be driven by the ANC Youth League. So we're quite sceptical as to whether they really can serve all youth or not.
We're sceptical, but do we have a voice? I mean, the National Youth Development Agency has representatives from many of the political parties except for the DA. Why are they not welcoming the DA's voice?
Well, unfortunately, clearly the ANC Youth League see us as a threat. We were excluded from the National Youth Development Agency's committee under the instruction of the ANC Youth League. So really that just points to the fact that this is another form of ANC catered deployment, that the ANC Youth League intend to control this committee and this agency 100% to the exclusion of the DA. So yeah, unfortunately we don't have a voice on this committee, but that's just another example of how the ANC operate.
It is hugely unfortunate. But on that note, what do you feel are the biggest challenges facing South African youth?
Definitely unemployment at this stage. The stats are around 75% unemployment amongst the youth. We can definitely link the state of our education system to that. The government needs to focus not only on providing universal access to education, but also improving the quality of education in South Africa. We are currently ranked last out of 40 countries in the world for the quality of our education system, and that really is directly linked to the capacity of young people to enter into the job market and become active, active citizens within the economy. So definitely education and unemployment.
So the youth certainly do face many challenges, and I think that's probably why it's even more so important for the youth to be politically aware, politically engaged, and politically involved. Do you feel that there's perhaps a lack of a sense of political ownership amongst South African youth?
Look, in the past, political organisations generally found the youth to be quite an apathetic market. Generally, young people felt quite despondent and didn't take an active role in politics. This time around, with this election, we've seen much greater youth participation. In fact, almost 80% of new registrations for this election were people under the age of 30, which is really quite an astounding figure. So I think now more than ever before, young people are starting to take ownership of the political process. They're getting excited once again, and of course this is absolutely vital to preserving our democracy and preserving the future of our country.
That is very good news to hear. But what has the DA specifically done to promote activism and participation from the South African youth?
Well, the DA Youth have an organisation called the Democratic Alliance Youth, which is established specifically to mobilise young people for the DA and also to train and develop young people through the youth structures so that they can play an active role in the future of the Democratic Alliance and the future of the politics of our country. So we are constantly growing this organisation. Our membership base is growing rapidly, and we're hoping that through this mechanism we really can excite and inspire young people once again.
That sounds very positive. And lastly, Aimee, is there anything that we haven't covered that you'd like to touch on that the youth would find particularly interesting?
I think we've covered most of the aspects. I think we must just remember that young people need to get involved in politics. It's absolutely vital to the future of this country that young people start to play a role in political organisations. You know, in 10 years' time, the people that are currently running the country aren't going to be there to do that anymore. And so the direction of this country is really going to be determined by young people. So I just ask all young people to please get excited about politics, and it's an exciting, dynamic field. And get involved so that you can have your say in South Africa.
That's very valuable advice, and thank you very much.
Thank you.